If I were to summarize some of this video, and if you're a type of player who's looking to do some of the Mythic content, or if you're a type of player who's sick and tired of getting rejected in Mythic plus queues, or your Mythic raiding guilds don't want to invite you because they're looking for the meta healers, and if you're looking to play, if I were to say which healer is the best at this given moment in this patch, if I take into account Mythic plus, if I take into account Mythic raiding, I would have to say that Holy Paladin is the strongest healer at this given moment. They can be regarded as one of the best or the second best Mythic raid healer. They can be regarded as the second best Mythic plus healer. This just kind of combines them and makes them a really solid pick at this given time. Now this is Glimmer of Light. If you don't play Glimmer of Light, you're gonna have troubles. But Glimmer of Light is definitely pushed Holy Paladin into the top tier healer. If you're looking to push primarily Mythic plus and you really wanna, get really high Mythic plus Keystone Stone, Resto Druid is your pick. Resto Druid in Mythic raids, it's not a bad pick, it's probably mid tier. But in Mythic plus, best healer by far, Resto Druid. If you're looking to really contribute towards your Mythic raiding experience and really help out your Mythic raiding guild, Discipline Priest in raids is a very, very solid choice. They're still a very strong healer, arguably the best or the second best healers. Whatever way you're going to look at it, whether you value HPS over like utility and things like that, or healer DPS. Hello guys, welcome to my new video, and today we'll be talking about the healing meta in BfA Patch 8.2. We'll be talking about raid healing performance, we'll be talking about the 5-mans, and after that we'll talk about how to improve it, because the healer meta, especially in raids and to some extent Mythic Plus, has been pretty bad. It's either been dominated by the same class over and over again, or there has been a new class emerging who's just far too good. And I really want to hear opinions about this. First of all, I can't wait to read all of your comments. I can't wait to read all the people who will point out that I missed out on a certain spec in this healer balance video. They'll say like, oh, you missed out on this healer is amazing. Why didn't you include this? This is the best, this is the best. I know, it's great. Thank you for pointing this out. I am not going to be talking about blood DKs in this video. This is all about the proper healer specs. But thank you for letting me know, guys. So first of all, let's go into it, and we're going to be looking at the raid healing performance first. So there's going to be a lot of graphs in this video, and I hope you enjoy graphs, but the healer balance in raid scenarios has been pretty abysmal. The fun fact about it is that you probably never knew about this. Even though this is the Mythic chart for 75 percentile, this is like real life information, real players doing bosses, real players healing and things like that. If we look at the actual heroic raid balance in terms of healers, in terms of 75 percentile, you'll see that it's actually pretty good. If you're only doing heroic content, you know that your Holy Priest, your Mistweaver might be dominating those healing meters in heroic content. There's not a lot of healing needed. Healer DPS is not really mandatory or demanded. So all of a sudden you see these reactive healers. Holy Priest, Mistweaver Monk, you see damage, you heal them up, doing pretty well. So if you're primarily doing mid or heroic content, you probably don't even know how bad healing balance is, because of the difference between Mythic and heroic in terms of damage patterns and in terms of what is needed to push really high-end content. So if you're in heroic content, don't worry about this. If you're not looking to push higher end Mythic content and stuff like that, you don't really have to pay attention to this. You don't have to worry about this, because the healer balance in heroic is actually not that bad, judging from this chart alone, and there's a lot of people here. So the healing imbalance starts to emerge when you go into Mythic content and you start seeing this. Now this chart has been like this for quite a while, and even though Resto Shamans have been climbing a little bit, there has been a Resto Shaman buff released a couple of days ago. It usually takes around 1 or 2 weeks to kind of see the difference, kind of see the buffs, because More players are playing Shamans, they're going to upload their logs, and logs are going to be added and things like that. So this is not a true representation of what Shamans might look like in 1 week, when the buffs, or at least we get more information to do with healing buffs, but I'll talk about them later on. But this is the healing balance in Mythic. You see Holy Paladin absolutely dominating raw or like healing throughput. Their healing is unmatched, and this is Glimmer of Light. We're not talking about the normal Holy Paladin build. That's forgotten, that's buried under. No one is playing this in Mythic content. If you want to play Holy Paladin in Mythic content, you have to go Glimmer. Glimmer is the only... It's the most overpowered healing spec in raids right now if you look at the pure healing throughput. That's Holy Paladin right now. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is far too imbalanced. The healing that they can do is insane. Just to highlight Holy Paladin power, I kind of have a little log that I kind of dug up, and it's, you know, it might not be the best representation, but this Holy Paladin got a rank 1 healing in Orgonzoa Mythic. He ended up healing 100k HP. Absolutely insane. I don't know whether other healers maybe were holding back or whatever, but 100k HP, insane. If we look at the raw healing, and raw healing indicates overhealing and effective healing. So basically, how much overall healing you actually end up doing. Holy Paladin was able to maintain 152,000 healing for an 8-minute fight. 152,000 healing. Now the difference is, from Mythic to Heroic, is that if this Paladin was doing Heroic content, they would probably be here in terms of effective healing, and the overhealing would be like absolutely massive, because there's not enough damage. So this is why I say that if you're doing Heroic content, Holy Paladins are not dominating, because there's not enough healing needed. Reactive or more reactive healers like Mistweaver or Holy Priest are probably going to do better. But once you step into that Mythic content, Mythic raid content, yeah, Holy Paladin is this beast that gets unleashed. The Glimmer is just insanely strong. Now, I don't want to kind of, you know, focus all on Holy Paladins, because Discipline Priest is probably the second best. To some argument could be still regarded as the best healer in terms of progression, because most of the world first guilds end up going with either 2 Discipline Priests and 1 Holy Paladin, or 2 Discipline Priests and 2 Holy Paladins. That is basically the meta for Mythic raiding content in terms of world first races. Now the reason that Discipline Priest is not dominating the HPS meters, it doesn't have to dominate the HPS meters. Holy Priest is really kind of overvalued here, because all of these Holy Priest logs are mainly coming from the first 3 Mythic bosses. If we actually go to the Mythic bosses that really matter, the first 3 bosses, Shivara, Radiance, Blackwater, Behemoth, they're pretty easy in terms of Mythic. You don't need to build a healing comp around those. It doesn't matter what healers you bring. You can bring 5 Holy Priests and you'll do fine. Lady Ashvale, Orgonzoa, and so on, they're the healing, or they're the Mythic bosses that require some sort of healing balance. And if you look at Lady Ashvale, if you look at the actual parses, and this is basically the representation of how many healers were brought in for these fights, or at least somewhat representation, you notice that, hey, Holy Paladin, Discipline Priest, absolutely insane. Holy Priest is falling down. If you go to Orgonzoa, the same kind of deal. Discipline Priests, Holy Paladin, Holy Priest is the last. If you go to Queen's Court, you notice the exact same thing. Holy Paladin, Discipline Priest, Holy Priest last. So it is a really bad indication if I go for all bosses and I see Holy Priest second, because they really are not that great in high-end Mythic progression. Because most of the Holy Priests will be forced to re-roll or play Discipline Priest, because Discipline is far better spec in high-end Mythic progression. Now, if I want to talk about the strengths of Discipline Priest, there is a lot of things that are not shown in this chart that you should be aware of. First of all, again, Holy Paladin, raw HPS, absolutely animal. It's a beast of a healer right now. Devotion Aura, damage reduction, cooldown is not being shown here. Discipline Priest, Barrier, an amazing damage reduction cooldown that requires stacking, is not being shown here. Can you imagine if these meters would actually show the true damage reduction healing conversion components into this chart? It's basically like me saying, Can you see Restoration Druid doing the same amount of healing without Tranquility? Can you see Holy Priest doing the same amount of healing without Divine Hymn if they were not being shown on healing meters? It's kind of similar to how these healing meters can be interpreted wrong. Right now, I just want to highlight for raid scenarios, Holy Paladin, Discipline Priest, if you're doing really high-end content, if you're trying to push really, you know, the hard bosses, these are the healers that are extremely strong. And then you probably will have, if you look at the basically Parasys, Restoration Shaman, even though the pure healing is not that great, they're probably the third most popular healer in the game right now in terms of high-end mythic progression. If you look at Lady Ashvale again, if you look at the Parasys, you see Restoration Shaman being number 3rd. If you go to Orgonzoa, you see the same kind of thing. Resto Shamans being, you know, the most popular healer after Holy Paladin and Discipline Priest. And even on fights like Zakul, where their healing is really kind of poor, you still see Resto Shamans being as one of the most popular healers. So even though Resto Shaman has been, in terms of pure healing, has not been represented pretty well, you might not be dominating healing meters, and the healing buffs will help with that, but their utility, Spirit Link, their ability to deal damage if they need to with, you know, IUP, Igneous Potential traits, they still have a lot of utility. So high-end mythic raiding guilds will still see value into Resto Shamans, even though their healing might not be dominating. So don't feel that bad about playing a Resto Shaman in high-end, because they're still very popular pick. And then after that, you'll have your Resto Druid, you'll have your Mistweaver Monk, you'll have your Holy Priest. You can take your pick whichever is the strongest. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, it's Holy Paladin, Discipline Priest, or Discipline Priest, Holy Paladin, then maybe Resto Shaman, and then whatever. And this is actually, funny enough, I made a prediction video about what healers are going to be strong in raid before Mythic came out. I think I was pretty close on point in terms of my predictions. So I'm kind of happy about this. But I just wanted to highlight why they're also so strong. So I mentioned Holy Paladin, raw HPS, absolutely insane. Discipline Priest, really good healing, has damage reduction cooldowns, barrier is very strong. Holy Paladin, Devotion Aura is very strong. And then we have to look at another component, and that is damage. Healer DPS is a real thing, and the number one example for this is Lady Ashvale. There's so many people that come back to me and say, hey MadSkillz, I'm playing Resto Druid, I'm playing this. My healing is great, I'm doing 70k HPS, but I just feel bad because I can't contribute any DPS towards Lady Ashvale because the damage requirement is really, really high. Lady Ashvale is the first boss where you actually need to push DPS, and healer DPS matters. It really, really matters. It's the first time, and it's only the 4th boss in the instance in terms of Mythic. It requires healers to DPS, and healer DPS is going to be a component that's gonna successfully allow you to kill the boss. So all of a sudden you have Discipline Priest, Holy Paladins, who can do DPS and heal at the same time without having any penalty for it. So how does it make sense if you look at the Mythic healer balance? Holy Paladin does a ton of DPS, Discipline Priest does a ton of DPS. That DPS allows them to heal for more, and on top of that they have really strong damage reduction cooldowns with Devotion Aura and Barrier. So if you look at Lady Ashvale and you're looking at building a healer composition, how can you not pick Holy Paladin and Discipline Priest? It just makes no sense. They're made for this fight. Like, if I bring a Resto Shaman with Igneous Potential trait, they'll have to sacrifice Azeroth slots, they'll have to DPS. They can't heal and DPS at the same time, or at least their DPS is not going to increase their healing, so they have to make sacrifices. You can bring a Holy Paladin and they have to make no sacrifices, and on top of that, they don't have any mana concerns. So at this point in Mythic progression, healing balance in Mythic is pretty atrocious. That's the overview of the video. If you're doing heroic content, you don't have to worry about this. Heroic logs are all fine. The balance is not that, or the difference in the balance is not that big because there's just not enough damage happening in heroic. People are over healing content. People are bringing 5 healers, bringing 6 healers just to be safe. You can't, the glass or the beast that Holy Paladin cannot really showcase its potential when it's being overhealed, when the content is being overhealed, when there's not enough healing needed. But once there is healing needed, you get this. And then on top of that, Discipline Priest is also going to be strong for various other reasons. Damage reduction, DPS, and things like that. So that is the healing meta for high-end Mythic rating progression, Mythic content. Now, if we talk about Mythic Plus and we talk about 5-man dungeons, again, not a whole lot of things have changed. If we look at rated.io, again, real-life information. We're looking at unique class population. We're looking at keys 15 and up, which is not all that high at this point. Again, Restoration Druid, no changes here. A top healer for a long time. The way that they stack their mastery, their single target healing is strong. Their utility Bile Res is strong. The way that they work with emissaries, they can root emissary every 8 seconds with roots and keep that emissary rooted at all times. That prevents mobs from being CC'd. They can push back mobs with Moonfire. They can just do everything. Resto Druid is made for 5-man content. The way that their mastery stacks, how many huts you can get, it's just really hard to not bring a Resto Druid or not rank a Resto Druid as the #1 healer. The interesting part is that Holy Paladin has been emerging as the second most popular healer because, again, Glimmer has been scaling extremely well. Their overall healing is really strong. Their damage is so good, especially that essences like Vision of Perfection has been pairing up really well with Wings. Wings is where the Holy Paladin power really comes from. Holy Paladin can do a ton of healing and a ton of DPS. I still feel that it's not going to be possible to overthrow Resto Druid from that #1 spot. I think Resto Druid is going to stay there for the rest of the expansion unless they're going to rework a lot of things about Resto Druid. But Holy Paladin has definitely been emerging as the second most popular healer. And then probably Mistweaver. I was kind of surprised to see that. Well, I didn't expect Holy Paladins to scale this well. And Mistweaver still has, you know, Way of the Crane. Way of the Crane can be really fun to use, but I feel you need the group to really optimize it. If you look at some of the time trials in MDI, you'll notice that, again, Resto Druids are there. There's some Holy Paladins. And there are some Mistweavers doing really high, like, you know, really fast keys. 17 Waycrest mana in 18 minutes. There is a spot for Mistweavers and there is a spot for Holy Paladins, but it's really hard to justify bringing Holy Paladin or Mistweaver over a Restoration Druid because Resto Druid just seem like they can do everything right now. Their damage is good if they actually spec into it, or at least, you know, they get DPS trinkets, they get DPS Azeroth, they get some of the DPS essences, they get, you know, Crucible of Flame and things like that. All of a sudden, Resto Druid can do damage and heal at the same time, deal with the emissaries, CC emissaries, push back emissaries, Bile Res the tank if they die, push back mobs if they need to push back. They're too good. I don't know what needs to be done about that, but Resto Druid is definitely still the king of Mythic Plus, then probably Holy Paladin, then probably Mistweaver, and then just take your pick between Resto Shaman, take your pick between Discipline Priest and Holy Priest. I don't know which one's going to be there. In terms of Resto Shaman buffs, I've been playing Resto Shaman quite a bit in Mythic Plus and raids. In Mythic Plus, I mean, it's nice. More single target healing. Resto Shaman is still can be considered as the, you know, the utility king. You have the interrupt, one of the best interrupts in the game that is ranged. You have a lot of, like, you know, you have stuns. You just have a lot of things. There is a lot of things that Resto Shaman that can provide, but at the same time, they do have, they still can't compete with Resto Druid in terms of, like, you know, dealing damage and healing at the same time. Their single target healing still doesn't seem as strong. It's nice to see Resto Shaman buffs, but I don't see Resto Shaman overtaking Resto Druid or even overtaking Holy Paladin at this point. We'll have to see. This is the Holy Paladin patch, and I would love to hear opinions about this. What should be changed? Maybe it should stay the same. I don't expect major changes happening until the next expansion. I feel Blizzard needs to tackle the whole idea of healer DPS. Healers like Discipline Priests and Holy Paladins being able to DPS and heal without any penalty. That needs to possibly change. Or maybe all other healers should be able to DPS, and that DPS is going to help their healing. I feel Blizzard needs to make a stance. Either none of them can do it or all of them can do it. I don't know, maybe that's my suggestion. I'd love to hear your ones. Thank you guys for watching this video, and if you enjoy the content, please do subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and I'll see you in my next guide.